because we kind of skipped over it earlier. We talked about the Webb.
Yeah.
The Webb telescope. How old's the universe?
Okay, so you had this this tweet that took over the internet and
Well,
Instagram posted.
it was actually something that I had heard before that.
Yeah.
Someone was saying there was something like a quasar that they had discovered that seemed to be far older than was supposed to be.
So ever since the Webb telescope was launched on Christmas Day 2021, and it's been traveling out to 1 million miles past the Earth-Moon system. It's about 1 million miles from the Earth. And there it orbits, it's cool, it orbits around a blank piece of space that orbits around the Earth and the sun. So it's a wild thing that was figured out a couple hundred years ago and is only possible to be used now. But anyway, this orbit allows James Webb and its cameras to see things in what's called the infrared portion of the infrared portion of the electromagnetic spectrum. So if you take, here I brought another GIF for Joe. So these are called a diffraction grating. So this is like 1 billion mini prisms. I got one for Jamie too. After the show, I'll give it to you, Jamie. So now if you hold this up to a source of white light, look at the source of white light above us. You see these beautiful rainbow halos, right? And it's almost a continuum. In other words, you can't tell where the red leaves off, the orange begins. You know, it's fuzzy, right? You can't really tell. But now look behind you at the Joe Rogan Experience neon light, okay? You'll basically just see the yellow, you'll see the orange. And that's because that's made of gases that only emit light at very, very narrow wavelengths, very, very small wavelengths.
What am I not supposed to see?
So you don't see the halo of a pure rainbow around the O. You see a couple of colors, but you don't see the continuous. See how it kind of breaks apart?
Yeah.
Or here's another example, Joe. I'll put this on the wall. This is a laser spot. Okay. So now look at this through there. What do you see?
I can't see it.
Oh, sorry.
There you go. Oh yeah, I see a bunch of them.
You just see a bunch of green dots.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
But now if I do this, here's a white light. I'll do it. I'll point it right closer. I don't want to blind you, but here, look at me.
Okay.
And look at that
Ooh,
light. Now you see a rainbow, right? Isn't that cool?
That's beautiful.
That's cool, right?
That's really pretty.
So this diffraction grating separates light out into all of its different wavelengths. It's called the spectrometer. It's dispersing it according to its color. Now, Isaac Newton and William Herschel figured out something really cool. They said, if I look at a light source, like the sun or something like that, and I block off all the light, here's the red lights on this, going to be on this side. If I put a thermometer, imagine you put a thermometer like right here. The thermometer would register 70 degrees or whatever it is in this room. If you go outside and the sun's out, it will, and the sunlight's not directly hitting the thermometer, and you put it where the red comes out over here, it starts to heat up. The thermometer gets warmer. And they realize there's light that you cannot see beyond the red that's responsible for the perception of heat. That's heat. That's called infrared radiation. If you keep going in this direction, if such a thing were possible, you eventually would get to microwaves, which is what I study. Those are wavelengths of about 1 millimeter to 3 or 4 millimeters in wavelength. Visible light is 500 millionths of a meter. It's incredibly small. Then there's infrared, et cetera, et cetera. And then finally there's radio waves way off over there that you can't see with something like this. Obviously, you can't even see infrared light with this. So they realize there's invisible light beyond the red, invisible to the eye, but visible to sensors and detectors. So what Webb has are a series of detectors like these things. These are like chips. These are actually superconductors, which I want to talk to you about this recent claim of detectors that can conduct electricity with no resistance. But these are superconductors. But nevertheless, these are like computer chips like Dell makes around the corner here, right? So if you put that, but they detect heat. Those detectors don't detect light. They don't care about light. They care about heat. So if you put them at the focus of a telescope and you spread out the light using something like this to disperse the light such that only infrared light falls on that telescope, then you will be detecting infrared radiation from whatever objects you look at. Now, if you point it at a galaxy that's far off in the distance or a quasar, that light has been red shifted. It's been moved all the way from where it started in the visible light, because those galaxies are made of suns and stars just like ours, so they should have visible light, but they're mostly red. Only the Webb telescope can see those with the kind of clarity and distinction that they're able to perceive it. Oh. What was claimed by a paper And actually, I've been communicating with the author. So one of the cool things about having a podcast is that when someone puts out a claim, oh, like a superconductor that works at room temperature, which would revolutionize, or there's fusion, not fission, but fusion that exists now for the first time, I can call them up and say, hey, I have this fun podcast. Would you like to come on? I've had Nobel Prize winners and billionaires and whatever. And they come on, and I can nerd out about science with it. It's super fun. So I did an interview with this woman, this poor friend of mine, Allison Kirkpatrick in Kansas. She was quoted as saying, like, I can't sleep, like the universe is not the way it's supposed to be. Webb has revealed and just shattered all my dreams about what the universe is really like. And this guy, I don't want to use their names, but this guy pulled that quote and said, this proves the Big Bang never happened. That was the first thing that happened after Webb came out last year. This gentleman is claiming that the universe is infinitely old. And that the reason that you see red galaxies is not because they're red shifted by the expansion of this. If I kept blowing up this beach ball, these things would be moving apart from each other, red shifting their wavelengths away from one another. He's saying, no, that's not what's happening. Instead, astronomers are foolish. They've been overwhelmed by this notion of the Big Bang. The Big Bang never happened, but light is losing energy and getting more and more red as it travels to us in an infinite universe. That's infinitely old.
Is this person qualified to make this statement?
This person has marginal qualifications. They give away the tell and poker language of this guy's non-seriousness is that he wrote the same thing 30 years ago when the Hubble telescope was launched. So he's had the same thing, and he has a book. But the second thing that you tweeted relative to was not that the universe was infinitely old, that it was twice as old as we thought.
Yeah, it's like 26
exactly.
billion years old.
So so I did a podcast with Allison Kirkpatrick, and she and I went through this guy's claims. And then the next day, and we showed what he was saying is slightly different. He's saying the universe has a finite age, that a Big Bang-like event happened, but because of these properties of galaxies that I'll explain in just 1 minute, because of the properties of the galaxies, the universe has to be much, much older than astronomers claimed. He doesn't say you guys are fools and idiots, and he's a legitimate professor in Ottawa. His name's Rajesh Gupta. The day after, so we went through it, took it apart. I thought it was pretty convincing, and he even agreed that there are problems with it. And worse or better, he has integrity. Let me just say that.